Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. So I want to talk to you guys about some more kind of one-on-one basics for you guys who are just getting into it. And I know from personal experience, when you just get into watch collecting as a hobby, there's a lot of terminology that gets thrown around, either on the forums, on the YouTubes, that can kind of go over your head if you're not that familiar with it. So we're just going to get right into it today. I'm going to go down alphabetical order and just kind of list off some terminology for you guys to get familiar with. First term, automatic. An automatic watch is a mechanical watch that is round by the motion of the wearer's wrist, rather than twisting the crown. The motion of the wrist moves a counterweight that's called the rotor. This powers the mainspring which turns the watch's gears. The balance wheel, a weighted wheel that oscillates at a constant rate, usually one oscillation per fraction of a second. This will move the watch's gears and allow the hands to move forward. Also featured here we got the balance spring. It's a delicate spring often made from metal, but on more expensive timepieces it can be made of silicone. It's attached to the balance wheel that regulates the weight at which the balance wheel oscillates. The balance spring is also referred to as the hairspring. The barrel. This is a cylindrical apparatus which houses the watch's mainspring. That's the watch's power reserve. The bezel. They're usually made from metal, but they can be occasionally made out of ceramic. It's a ring that surrounds the watch's crystal. The bezel can rotate on some watches, such as dive watches, and it serves as a scale for time measurement or some other type of measurement. Some do remain stationary though, like this one that's made out of diamonds. It's purely decorative. The bridge. The bridge is a plate or a bar that is mounted to the main plate. It forms a frame that houses the inner workings of a mechanical watch. Here it is on the Corum Golden Bridge. Caliber. Caliber is a synonym for a movement. Here we have featured the Rolex Calibre 3235. This is everything, guys. The movement is absolutely everything when it comes to the true value that lies in a watch. Case back. This is the reverse side of a watch case. It can be removed to access the inside of a watch during servicing. Chronograph. A type of watch that features an additional stopwatch function in addition to the main time. It's controlled by the set of pushes on the side of the case. The top one's to start and stop the chronograph, while the second one's to reset it. Chronometer. A chronometer is a watch that has been independently tested by the official Swiss Chronometer Testing Institute, or the COCS for short. To get the chronometer certification, a watch is tested over the course of several days. It will be tested at 6 different positions and at 3 different temperatures. The watch will have to keep an accuracy rating of -4 to +6 seconds a day. Complication. A complication is an additional function of a watch that goes beyond simply telling the time. It can be a stopwatch like a chronograph, a calendar, date, or one of my favorite and probably the most useless, a moon phase indicator. Crown. The crown is a small knob on the side of the watch that can be used to adjust the time or another complication. Crystal. The crystal is the protective covering over the dial of the watch. It's usually made from sapphire, but on older watches it can be made from acrylic or glass. Out of the 3 types of crystals, sapphire crystals are the most expensive, but they're also the most scratch resistant. Deployant clasp. This is a type of watch strap buckle that first folds in on itself and then clasps over, thus deploying when you take it on and off. Dial. This is simple, guys. This is the face of the watch. Dive watch. A dive watch is a watch that's highly water resistant. We don't say watches are waterproof anymore, but we say they have water resistance. A good rule of thumb is a watch that has 50 meters of water resistance. You shouldn't be afraid to wash your hands, and sweat's not going to hurt it. 100 meters of water resistance is going to be okay to go swimming, but dive watches are going to have 200 water resistance or more. Usually dive watches have between 200 to 300 meters of water resistance, but some high-end watches can go a lot deeper. Escapement. The escapement is a mechanical linkage inside a mechanical watch that gives impulses to the timekeeping elements and periodically releases the gear train to move the watch's second hand forward. Exhibition case back. Exhibition case back is a transparent case back, usually made out of sapphire crystal, that allows you to see the watch's movement from the backside of the watch. Frequency. The frequency is the speed at which a watch ticks or beats. It's measured in vibrations per hour or hertz. Most automatic watches vibrate at 4 Hz. Watches that vibrate at 5 Hz or higher are considered high beat watches. Flyback chronograph. This is a type of chronograph that can be reset without first stopping the chronograph function, which is necessary in a normal chronograph. Gear train. The gear train is the system of gears that transfer power from the mainspring to the escapement. GMT. This is short for Greenwich Mean Time. A GMT is a complication on a watch that gives the watch the ability to track 2 time zones at once. Grail watch. This is the ultimate watch that somebody wishes to have in their collection or aspires to acquire. Guilloche. Guilloche is an engraved ornamental pattern that can be put on high-end watches. When done by hand, it's an extremely hard procedure to perform. Hacking seconds. This is a watch feature that will stop the second hands when the crown is pulled out. This makes it easier to set the watch to exact reference time. Hand wound. A hand wound watch is a mechanical watch that doesn't automatically wind and has to be manually wound by the crown to wind up the mainspring. Horology. Horology is the art or science of measuring time. Indices. Indices are the markings on a watch that represent the hours in place of numerals. Jewels. These are synthetic rubies or synthetic sapphires that are used as bearings at the heaviest points of a watch's movement. Jewels have a low coefficient of friction, so it reduces the friction between moving parts of a watch and will increase a watch's lifespan. Higher end watches usually have more jewels in their movement than a lower end watch will. Lugs. Lugs are the protruding pieces of metal at the top and the bottom of a watch case. This is where the strap is attached. The spacing between the lugs is going to determine what size strap your watch can take. So make sure to have this measured or look it up in your manual before you order a new strap for your watch. Luminescence, or lume for short. Luminescence is the glow given off by watch numerals or indices that have been coated with a photoluminescence material. Most lume has to be first charged by sunlight, but watches that still use tritium gas tubes will always give off a lume, and it doesn't have to be charged by the sun. Magnetism or magnetization. Metal components inside a watch can often be magnetized if they're introduced to a magnetic field. This is going to cause a serious loss of accuracy, but it can be easily fixed by a watchmaker. Some watches nowadays will use iron cages to protect the movement from magnetic fields, or they'll use a silicone balance wheel that cannot become magnetized. Main plate. The main plate is the base on which all watch parts are mounted. Mainspring. The mainspring is, the mainspring that stores the energy of a watch. The spring unwinding is what powers a mechanical watch, and it's housed in the barrel. Manufacture de horology. This is a French term that is shortened to manufacture, and it means a watch that develops all its own parts, including its movements, at its own watch facility. But you're going to hear about this as in-house. In-house watch movements are held in high regard because it is an extremely long and painstaking process to develop one's own movement. Movement. As I was saying, the movement is really the heart of the watch. This can either be an in-house movement that was developed by a watch manufacturer, or it can be developed by a large movement maker like ETA or Valjoux. Power reserve. This is the length of a time a mechanical watch will run once it's fully wound. Now, most entry-level Swiss watches are going to have a power reserve of around 40 hours, though some high-end watches can have a longer power reserve. This Hublot Pictured has a power reserve of 14 days, which is extremely long. That means you could put this watch down, come back 2 weeks later, and it will still be running. Quartz. A quartz watch is a battery-powered watch. Although quartz watches are cheaper, more reliable, and more accurate than a mechanical watch, they are not held in the same regard typically as a mechanical watch because of their simpler components. Repeater. A repeater is a high-end watch complication that chimes to denote the time with the push of a button on the watch's case. It's one of the most expensive and complicated features that can be put into a mechanical watch. Retrograde. A retrograde watch features an indicator on the watch that forms a segment of a circle. The indicator will go through a full cycle and then reset back to the zero position by quickly springing backwards. This is a function that can be used a variety of ways. It can be used to indicate either the hours, the minutes, or the dates, typically. The example showed here has a retrograde calendar function. Silicone. Silicone is a metalloid that is used in high-end watchmaking. It doesn't require lubricant, and it is more resistant to magnetism or temperature changes than metal. Watches that use silicone components are usually more accurate, more reliable, and more resistant to magnetization than their counterparts that use metal components. Skeleton watch. This is a watch that has a transparent or partially cut out dial so that the movement can be viewed from the front of the watch. Small seconds. Instead of a large second hand, some watches use a small subdial separate from the main time to display the seconds. Tourbillon. Tourbillon is actually French for whirlwind, and it's a type of escapement that is held in a rotating cage that is meant to counter the negative effects of gravity on a watch movement. Some argue if a tourbillon is actually a useful function in a wristwatch, as it was originally intended for the use of pocket watches. Regardless, it is an extremely complicated function to manufacture, and it is only found on watches with exorbitant price tags. On average, if you want a watch with a tourbillon, you're probably going to have to spend around $100,000. Watchmakers like to add this feature on their watch to really showcase their abilities. Winder. A winder is a special type of case for a watch that gently rotates the automatic watch to keep the mainspring fully wound when it isn't being worn on the wrist. Some people argue whether a winder is actually necessary, but if you have a watch that has lots of complications, such as a perpetual calendar, then it's probably going to be a good idea. World timer. A world timer is a watch that has a dial that can be adjusted to show the time zone in 24 different time zones represented by 24 major cities across the globe. Personally, I think this is a pretty cool and amazing feature, and it's probably the best for pilots who are switching time zones frequently. That was a lot of terminology, and I'm sure I forgot a thing or two, but that's alright guys. Watch collecting is supposed to be a fun hobby, so don't go stressing yourself out. If you have to watch the video again, that's okay. No one's going to rag on you if you're a new collector and you don't know all these terms the minute you start getting into it. Don't stress yourselves out. More or less, this is just for you guys who are getting into the hobby and you want to spend a significant amount of money, whatever that is for you, on a watch. I want you guys to go into it as informed as possible so that you can make good decisions. When I first started getting into watch collecting, I made a lot of mistakes and I kind of blew some money that I didn't have to if I was better informed. I want you guys to be in a better spot than where I was. I'll go over that in a future video of my personal watch mistakes and what you guys can do to avoid that. If you like the video guys, please subscribe. It would really help the channel grow. The more subscribers I have on this channel, the more content I'll be able to bring you guys. I have some really cool stuff planned for the future, so if you guys could help the channel grow, I'd really appreciate it. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, because I'm sure I forgot a couple of things. But thanks for watching the video, guys.